Today on We Cook, You Cook, we're in Aklavik. You've already learned about reading labels in Tuck, but today we're going to take a closer look at sodium. Remember, if a nutrient has percentage daily value of 15% or higher, it is considered to be high. And if a nutrient has percentage daily value of 5% and less, it's considered low. Sodium is found in salt, and the reason that you often hear health professionals talk about cutting down on the amount of sodium we eat is because it affects our blood pressure. Having high blood pressure can put you at a higher risk of stroke, heart disease, kidney disease, osteoporosis, stomach cancer, and more severe asthma. This is how much sodium we should have maximum per day, but most of us eat much more than that. Some people think that some types of salts are healthier than others, but the thing you remember is that sodium is sodium is sodium. It doesn't matter if it's table salt, celery salt, onion salt, garlic salt, sea salt, soy sauce, or bouillon cubes. All salts contain sodium, which affects your blood pressure. Over 75% of the sodium we get in our diet is from eating processed foods like frozen pizzas, microwave dinners, salty snack foods, canned foods, and processed meats like hot dogs, bacon, sausage, and deli meats. A little comes from adding salt to food when we cook or at the table. The rest is found naturally in foods. Since over 75% of the sodium we get is from eating processed foods, it only makes sense that if we can cut back on how much processed foods we eat, we also cut back on the amount of sodium our body gets. Just to show you how much sodium is in our food supply, we'll talk about a few different foods that are typically high in sodium. The first items on our menu are pre-packaged sandwiches and subs. The sodium comes mostly from the deli meats and cheese.
Instead, I make a bunch of sandwiches ahead of time so I can just grab them from the fridge. I use leftover unprocessed meats like caribou, chicken, or fish, and toppings like tomatoes, lettuce, and real cheese.
Number 2 on our menu, processed chicken dinners. So how can we reduce the salt from these foods?
Instead of buying processed meats, I use fresh or frozen because there's no added salt.
Number 3 on our menu, instant noodles. Yes, instant noodles are definitely very high in sodium. Luckily, there are some smart ways of getting around the high sodium in instant noodles.
I usually don't drink the broth. Other times I use half of the seasoning package.
And last but not least, frozen pizza.
I know that pizza are loaded with sodium, so I try to make my own. It's super easy to make, but still delicious.
So we can see that sodium is everywhere. So what can we do to cut back? Let's talk to some community members and see what strategies they use.
I like to cut back gradually. Eventually you get used to it, don't even notice the difference.
I taste my food before I add any salt. I check what kind of salt is in foods if I'm buying foods. By just reducing that little bit of salt with each meal, or just being a little bit mindful about what I'm putting into my food, I can protect my heart.
What I do to cut back on sodium and the amount that I use is I cook with herbs and spices, and I don't put salt on the table. I also try not to purchase products high in sodium such as deli meats, hot dogs, and sausages.
That's the scoop on sodium. We hope you'll be able to find some ways to cut down on the amount of sodium you get in your diet. Your body will thank you. Thanks for tuning in.